Greetings from Exam Heist. We have identified important exam questions. Practice these important questions 2-3 times to get 100% success in exam. Subscribe and comment, share PDF in the below comment section to get PDF of these 40 important questions. If you want to access full dump, please visit www.examheist.com. We have 24/7 support available for your doubts and exam queries.
Question 1. Your company has decided to make a major revision of their API in order to create better experiences for their developers. They need to keep the old version of the API available and deployable, while allowing new customers and testers to try out the new API. They want to keep the same SSL and DNS records in place to serve both APIs. What should they do? Option A. Configure a new load balancer for the new version of the API. Option B. Reconfigure old clients to use a new endpoint for the new API. Option C. Have the old API forward traffic to the new API based on the path. Option D. Use separate backend pools for each API path behind the load balancer. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option D. Use separate backend pools for each API path behind the load balancer. Question 2. Your company plans to migrate a multi-petabyte dataset to the cloud. The dataset must be available 24 hours a day. Your business analysts have experience only with using a SQL interface. How should you store the data to optimize it for ease of analysis? Option A. Load data into Google BigQuery. Option B. Insert data into Google Cloud SQL. Option C. Put flat files into Google Cloud Storage. Option D. Stream data into Google Cloud Data Store. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option A. Load data into Google BigQuery. Question 3. The operations manager asks you for a list of recommended practices that she should consider when migrating a J2EE application to the cloud. Which 3 practices should you recommend? Choose 3. Option A. Port the application code to run on Google App Engine. Option B. Integrate cloud data flow into the application to capture real-time metrics. Option C. Instrument the application with a monitoring tool like Stackdriver Debugger. Option D. Select an automation framework to reliably provision the cloud infrastructure. Option A. Deploy a continuous integration tool with automated testing in a staging environment. Option F. Migrate from MySQL to a managed NoSQL database like Google Cloud Data Store or Bigtable. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option C. Instrument the application with a monitoring tool like Stackdriver Debugger. Option D. Select an automation framework to reliably provision the cloud infrastructure. Option A. Deploy a continuous integration tool with automated testing in a staging environment. Question 4. A newsfeed web service has the following code running on Google App Engine. During peak load, users report that they can see news articles they already viewed. Which is the most likely cause of this problem? Option A. The session variable is local to just a single instance. Option B. The session variable is being overwritten in Cloud Data Store. Option C. The URL of the API needs to be modified to prevent caching. Option D. The HTTP expires header needs to be set to -1 stop caching. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option A. The session variable is local to just a single instance. Question 5. An application development team believes their current logging tool will not meet their needs for their new cloud-based product. They want a better tool to capture errors and help them analyze their historical log data. You want to help them find a solution that meets their needs. What should you do? Option A. Direct them to download and install the Google Stack Driver logging agent. Option B. Send them a list of online resources about logging best practices. Option C. Help them define their requirements and assess viable logging tools. Option D. Help them upgrade their current tool to take advantage of any new features. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option C. Help them define their requirements and assess viable logging tools. Question 6. You need to reduce the number of unplanned rollbacks of erroneous production deployments in your company's web hosting platform. Improvement to the car test processes accomplished an 80% reduction. Which additional 2 approaches can you take to further reduce the rollbacks? Choose 2. Option A. Introduce a green-blue deployment model. Option B. Replace the car environment with canary releases. Option C. Fragment the monolithic platform into microservices. Option D. Reduce the platform's dependency on relational database systems. Option A. Replace the platform's relational database systems with a NoSQL database. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option A. Introduce a green-blue deployment model. Option C. Fragment the monolithic platform into microservices. Question 7. To reduce costs, the Director of Engineering has required all developers to move their development infrastructure resources from on-premises virtual machines, VMs, to Google Cloud Platform. These resources go through multiple start-stop events during the day and require state to persist. You have been asked to design the process of running a development environment in Google Cloud while providing cost visibility to the finance department. Which 2 steps should you take? Choose 2. Option A. Use the No Auto Delete flag on all persistent disks and stop the VM. Option B. Use the Auto Delete flag on all persistent disks and terminate the VM. Option C. Apply VM CPU utilization label and include it in the BigQuery billing export. Option D. Use Google BigQuery billing export and labels to associate cost to groups. Option A. Store all state into local SSD. Snapshot the persistent disks and terminate the VM. Option F. Store all state in Google Cloud Storage. Snapshot the persistent disks and terminate the VM. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option A. Use the No Auto Delete flag on all persistent disks and stop the VM. Option D. Use Google BigQuery billing export and labels to associate cost to groups. Question 8. Your company wants to track whether someone is present in a meeting room reserved for a scheduled meeting. There are 1,000 meeting rooms across 5 offices on 3 continents. Each room is equipped with a motion sensor that reports its status every second. The data from the motion detector includes only a sensor ID and several different discrete items of information. Analysts will use this data, together with information about account owners and office locations. Which database type should you use? Option A. Flat file. Option B. NoSQL. Option C. Relational. Option D. Blob store. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option B. NoSQL. Question 9. You set up an auto-scaling instance group to serve web traffic for an upcoming launch. After configuring the instance group as a backend service to an HTTPS load balancer, you notice that virtual machine VM instances are being terminated and relaunched every minute. The instances do not have a public IP address. You have verified the appropriate web response is coming from each instance using the curl command. You want to ensure the backend is configured correctly. What should you do? Option A. Ensure that a firewall rules exists to allow source traffic on HTTP HTTPS to reach the load balancer. Option B. Assign a public IP to each instance and configure a firewall rule to allow the load balancer to reach the instance public IP. Option C. Ensure that a firewall rule exists to allow load balancer health checks to reach the instances in the instance group. Option D. Create a tag on each instance with the name of the load balancer. Configure a firewall rule with the name of the load balancer as the source and the instance tag as the destination. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option C. Ensure that a firewall rule exists to allow load balancer health checks to reach the instances in the instance group. Question 10. You write a Python script to connect to Google BigQuery from a Google Compute Engine virtual machine. The script is printing errors that it cannot connect to BigQuery. What should you do to fix the script? Option A. Install the latest BigQuery API client library for Python. Option B. Run your script on a new virtual machine with the BigQuery access scope enabled. Option C. Create a new service account with BigQuery access and execute your script with that user. Option D. Install the BQ component for gcloud with the command gcloud components install BQ. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option C. Create a new service account with BigQuery access and execute your script with that user. Question 11. Your customer is moving an existing corporate application to Google Cloud Platform from an on-premises data center. The business owners require minimal user disruption. There are strict security team requirements for storing passwords. What authentication strategy should they use? Option A. Use G Suite Password Sync to replicate passwords into Google. Option B. Federate authentication via SAML2.0 to the existing identity provider. Option C. Provision users in Google using the Google Cloud Directory Sync tool. Option D. Ask users to set their Google password to match their corporate password. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option B. Federate authentication via SAML2.0 to the existing identity provider. Question 12. Your company has successfully migrated to the cloud and wants to analyze their data stream to optimize operations. They do not have any existing code for this analysis. So they are exploring all their options. These options include a mix of batch and stream processing, as they are running some hourly jobs and live processing some data as it comes in. Which technology should they use for this? Option A. Google Cloud Data Proc. Option B. Google Cloud Data Flow. Option C. Google Container Engine with Bigtable. Option D. Google Compute Engine with Google BigQuery. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option B. Google Cloud Data Flow. Question 13. Your customer is receiving reports that their recently updated Google App Engine application is taking approximately 30 seconds to load for some of their users. This behavior was not reported before the update. What strategy should you take? Option A. Work with your ISP to diagnose the problem. Option B. Open a support ticket to ask for network capture and flow data to diagnose the problem. Then roll back your application. Option C. Roll back to an earlier known good release initially. Then use stack driver trace and logging to diagnose the problem in a development, test, staging environment. Option D. Roll back to an earlier known good release. Then push the release again at a quieter period to investigate. Then use stack driver trace and logging to diagnose the problem. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option C. Roll back to an earlier known good release initially. Then use stack driver trace and logging to diagnose the problem in a development, test, staging environment. Question 14. A production database virtual machine on Google Compute Engine has an ext4 formatted persistent disk for data files. The database is about to run out of storage space. How can you remediate the problem with the least amount of downtime? Option A. In the Cloud Platform console. Increase the size of the persistent disk and use the resize2fs command in Linux. Option B. Shut down the virtual machine. Use the Cloud Platform console to increase the persistent disk size. Then restart the virtual machine. Option C. In the Cloud Platform console. Increase the size of the persistent disk and verify the new space is ready to use with the fdisk command in Linux. Option D. In the Cloud Platform console. Create a new persistent disk attached to the virtual machine. Format and mount it, and configure the database service to move the files to the new disk. Option A. In the Cloud Platform console. Create a snapshot of the persistent disk. Restore the snapshot to a new larger disk. Unmount the old disk. Mount the new disk and restart the database service. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option A. In the Cloud Platform console. Increase the size of the persistent disk and use the resize2fs command in Linux. Question 15. Your application needs to process credit card transactions. You want the smallest scope of payment card industry (PCI) compliance without compromising the ability to analyze transactional data and trends relating to which payment methods are used. How should you design your architecture? Option A. Create a tokenizer service and store only tokenized data. Option B. Create separate projects that only process credit card data. Option C. Create separate subnetworks and isolate the components that process credit card data. Option D. Streamline the audit discovery phase by labeling all of the virtual machines (VMs) that process PCI data. Option A. Enable logging export to Google BigQuery and use ACLs and views to scope the data shared with the auditor. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option A. Create a tokenizer service and store only tokenized data. Question 16. You have been asked to select the storage system for the click data of your company's large portfolio of websites. This data is streamed in from a custom website analytics package at a typical rate of 6,000 clicks per minute, with bursts of up to 8,500 clicks per second. It must have been stored for future analysis by your data science and user experience teams. Which storage infrastructure should you choose? Option A. Google Cloud SQL. Option B. Google Cloud Bigtable. Option C. Google Cloud Storage. Option D. Google Cloud Data Store. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option B. Google Cloud Bigtable. Question 17. You are creating a solution to remove backup files older than 90 days from your backup cloud storage bucket. You want to optimize ongoing cloud storage spend. What should you do? Option A. Write a lifecycle management rule in XML and push it to the bucket with gsutil. Option B. Write a lifecycle management rule in JSON and push it to the bucket with gsutil. Option C. Schedule a cron script using gsutil ls, lrgs. Backups, *** to find and remove items older than 90 days. Option D. Schedule a cron script using gsutil ls, lgs. Backups, *** to find and remove items older than 90 days and schedule it with cron. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option B. Write a lifecycle management rule in JSON and push it to the bucket with gsutil. Question 18. Your company is forecasting a sharp increase in the number and size of Apache Spark and Hadoop jobs being run on your local data center. You want to utilize the cloud to help you scale this upcoming demand with the least amount of operations work and code. Change. Which product should you use? Option A, Google Cloud Dataflow. Option B, Google Cloud Dataproc. Option C, Google Compute Engine. Option D, Google Kubernetes Engine. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option B, Google Cloud Dataproc. Question 19. The database administration team has asked you to help them improve the performance of their new database server running on Google Compute Engine. The database is for importing and normalizing their performance statistics and is built with MySQL running on Debian Linux. They have an N1 standard 8 virtual machine with 80 GB of SSD persistent disk. What should they change to get better performance from this system? Option A. Increase the virtual machine's memory to 64 GB. Option B. Create a new virtual machine running PostgreSQL. Option C. Dynamically resize the SSD persistent disk to 500 GB. Option D. Migrate their performance metrics warehouse to BigQuery. Option A. Modify all of their batch jobs to use bulk inserts into the database. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option C, dynamically resize the SSD persistent disk to 500 GB. Question 20. You want to optimize the performance of an accurate, real-time weather charting application. The data comes from 50,000 sensors sending 10 readings a second, in the format of a timestamp and sensor reading. Where should you store the data? Option A, Google BigQuery. Option B, Google Cloud SQL. Option C, Google Cloud Bigtable. Option D, Google Cloud Storage. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option C, Google Cloud Bigtable. Question 21. Your company's user feedback portal comprises a standard LAMP stack replicated across 2 zones. It is deployed in the US Central 1 region and uses auto-scaled managed instance groups on all layers, except the database. Currently, only a small group of select customers have access to the portal. The portal meets a 99% availability SLA under these conditions. However, next quarter, your company will be making the portal available to all users, including unauthenticated users. You need to develop a resiliency testing strategy to ensure the system maintains the SLA once they introduce additional user load. What should you do? Option A. Capture existing users' input and replay captured user load until autoscale is triggered on all layers. At the same time, terminate all resources in one of the zones. Option B. Create synthetic random user input. Replay synthetic load until autoscale logic is triggered on at least one layer. And introduce chaos to the system by terminating random resources on both zones. Option C. Expose the new system to a larger group of users. And increase group size each day until autoscale logic is triggered on all layers. At the same time, terminate random resources on both zones. Option D. Capture existing users' input and replay captured user load until resource utilization crosses 80%. Also, derive estimated number of users based on existing users' usage of the app. And deploy enough resources to handle 200% of expected load. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option B. Create synthetic random user input. Replay synthetic load until autoscale logic is triggered on at least one layer. And introduce chaos to the system by terminating random resources on both zones. Question 22. One of the developers on your team deployed their application in Google Container Engine with the Docker file below. They report that their application deployments are taking too long. You want to optimize this Docker file for faster deployment times without adversely affecting the app's functionality. Which two actions should you take? Choose two. Option A. Remove Python after running pip. Option B. Remove dependencies from requirements. Text. Option C. Use a slimmed down base image like Alpine Linux. Option D. Use larger machine types for your Google Container Engine node pools. Option A. Copy the source after he packaged dependencies. Python and pip are installed. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option C. Use a slimmed down base image like Alpine Linux. Option A. Copy the source after he packaged dependencies. Python and pip are installed. Question 23. Your solution is producing performance bugs in production that you did not see in staging and test environments. You want to adjust your test and deployment procedures to avoid this problem in the future. What should you do? Option A. Deploy fewer changes to production. Option B. Deploy smaller changes to production. Option C. Increase the load on your test and staging environments. Option D. Deploy changes to a small subset of users before rolling out to production. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option C. Increase the load on your test and staging environments. Question 24. A small number of API requests to your microservices-based application take a very long time. You know that each request to the API can traverse many services. You want to know which service takes the longest in those cases. What should you do? Option A. Set timeouts on your application so that you can fail requests faster. Option B. Send custom metrics for each of your requests to Stackdriver monitoring. Option C. Use Stackdriver monitoring to look for insights that show when your API latencies are high. Option D. Instrument your application with Stackdriver trace in order to break down the request latencies at each microservice. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option D. Instrument your application with Stackdriver trace in order to break down the request latencies at each microservice. Question 25. During a high traffic portion of the day, one of your relational databases crashes, but the replica is never promoted to a master. You want to avoid this in the future. What should you do? Option A. Use a different database. Option B. Choose larger instances for your database. Option C. Create snapshots of your database more regularly. Option D. Implement routinely scheduled file hours of your databases. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option D. Implement routinely scheduled file hours of your databases. Question 26. Your organization requires that metrics from all applications be retained for 5 years for future analysis in possible legal proceedings. Which approach should you use? Option A. Grant the security team access to the logs in each project. Option B. Configure Stackdriver monitoring for all projects and export to BigQuery. Option C. Configure Stackdriver monitoring for all projects with the default retention policies. Option D. Configure Stackdriver monitoring for all projects and export to Google Cloud Storage. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option D. Configure Stackdriver monitoring for all projects and export to Google Cloud Storage. Question 27. Your company has decided to build a backup replica of their on-premises user authentication PostgreSQL database on Google Cloud Platform. The database is 4 terabytes, and large updates are frequent. Replication requires private address space communication. Which networking approach should you use? Option A. Google Cloud Dedicated Interconnect. Option B. Google Cloud VPN connected to the data center network. Option C. A NAT and TLS translation gateway installed on premises. Option D. A Google Compute Engine instance with a VPN server installed connected to the data center network. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option A, Google Cloud Dedicated Interconnect. Question 28. Auditors visit your teams every 12 months and ask to review all the Google Cloud identity and access management. Cloud policy changes in the previous 12 months. You want to streamline and expedite the analysis and audit process. What should you do? Option A. Create custom Google Stack driver alerts and send them to the auditor. Option B. Enable logging export to Google BigQuery and use ACLs and views to scope the data shared with the auditor. Option C. Use Cloud Functions to transfer log entries to Google Cloud SQL and use ACLs and views to limit an auditor's view. Option D. Enable Google Cloud Storage (GCS). Log export to audit logs into a GCS bucket and delegate access to the bucket. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option B. Enable logging export to Google BigQuery and use ACLs and views to scope the data shared with the auditor. Question 29. You are designing a large distributed application with 30 microservices. Each of your distributed microservices needs to connect to a database backend. You want to store the credentials securely. Where should you store the credentials? Option A. In the source code. Option B. In an environment variable. Option C. In a secret management system. Option D. In a config file that has restricted access through ACLs. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option C, in a secret management system. Question 30. A lead engineer wrote a custom tool that deploys virtual machines in the legacy data center. He wants to migrate the custom tool to the new cloud environment. You want to advocate for the adoption of Google Cloud Deployment Manager. What are 2 business risks of migrating to Cloud Deployment Manager? Choose 2. Option A. Cloud Deployment Manager uses Python. Option B. Cloud Deployment Manager APIs could be deprecated in the future. Option C. Cloud Deployment Manager is unfamiliar to the company's engineers. Option D. Cloud Deployment Manager requires a Google APIs service account to run. Option A. Cloud Deployment Manager can be used to permanently delete cloud resources. Option F. Cloud Deployment Manager only supports automation of Google Cloud resources. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option A. Cloud Deployment Manager can be used to permanently delete cloud resources. Option F. Cloud Deployment Manager only supports automation of Google Cloud resources. Question 31. A development manager is building a new application. He asks you to review his requirements and identify what cloud technologies he can use to meet them. The application must 1. Be based on open source technology for cloud portability. 2. Dynamically scale compute capacity based on demand. 3. Support continuous software delivery. 4. Run multiple segregated copies of the same application stack. 5. Deploy application bundles using dynamic templates. 6. Route network traffic to specific services based on URL. Which combination of technologies will meet all of his requirements? Option A. Google Kubernetes Engine, Jenkins, and Helm. Option B. Google Kubernetes Engine and Cloud Load Balancing. Option C. Google Kubernetes Engine and Cloud Deployment Manager. Option D. Google Kubernetes Engine, Jenkins, and Cloud Load Balancing. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option A. Google Kubernetes Engine, Jenkins, and Helm. Question 32. You have created several preemptible Linux virtual machine instances using Google Compute Engine. You want to properly shut down your application before the virtual machines are preempted. What should you do? Option A. Create a shutdown script named K99. Shutdown in the etc rc6d directory. Option B. Create a shutdown script registered as a shinetd service in Linux and configure a stack driver endpoint check to call Hey service. Option C. Create a shutdown script and use it as the value for a new metadata entry with the key shutdown script in the Cloud Platform console when you create the new virtual machine instance. Option D. Create a shutdown script registered as a shinetd service in Linux and use the G-Cloud Compute Instances add metadata command to specify the service URL as the value for a new metadata entry with the key shutdown script URL. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option C. Create a shutdown script and use it as the value for a new metadata entry with the key shutdown script in the Cloud Platform console when you create the new virtual machine instance. Question 33. Your organization has a 3-tier web application deployed in the same network on Google Cloud Platform. Each tier, web, API, and database, scales independently of the others. Network traffic should flow through the web to the API tier and then onto the database tier. Traffic should not flow between the web and the database tier. How should you configure the network? Option A. Add each tier to a different subnetwork. Option B. Set up software-based firewalls on individual VMs. Option C. Add tags to each tier and set up routes to allow the desired traffic flow. Option D. Add tags to each tier and set up firewall rules to allow the desired traffic flow. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option D. Add tags to each tier and set up firewall rules to allow the desired traffic flow. Question 34. Your development team has installed a new Linux kernel module on the batch servers in Google Compute Engine. GCE, virtual machines, VMs, to speed up the nightly batch process. 2 days after the installation, 50% of the batch servers failed the nightly batch run. You want to collect details on the failure to pass back to the development team. Which 3 actions should you take? Choose 3. Option A. Use stack driver logging to search for the module log entries. Option B. Read the debug GCE activity log using the API or Cloud Console. Option C. Use G-Cloud or Cloud Console to connect to the serial console and observe the logs. Option D. Identify whether a live migration event of the failed server occurred, using in the activity log. Option A. Adjust the Google Stack driver timeline to match the failure time, and observe the batch server metrics. Option F. Export the debug VM into an image, and run the image on a local server where kernel log messages will be displayed on the native screen. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option A. Use stack driver logging to search for the module log entries. Option C. Use G-Cloud or Cloud Console to connect to the serial console and observe the logs. Option A. Adjust the Google Stack driver timeline to match the failure time, and observe the batch server metrics. Question 35. Your company wants to try out the cloud with low risk. They want to archive approximately 100 terabytes of their log data to the cloud and test the analytics features available to them there, while also retaining that data as a long-term disaster recovery backup. Which 2 steps should you take? Choose 2. Option A. Load logs into Google BigQuery. Option B. Load logs into Google Cloud SQL. Option C. Import logs into Google Stack Driver. Option D. Insert logs into Google Cloud Bigtable. Option A. Upload log files into Google Cloud Storage. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option A. Load logs into Google BigQuery. Option A. Upload log files into Google Cloud Storage. Question 36. You created a pipeline that can deploy your source code changes to your infrastructure in instance groups for self-healing. One of the changes negatively affects your key performance indicator. You are not sure how to fix it, and investigation could take up to a week. What should you do? Option A. Log into a server and iterate on the forks locally. Option B. Revert the source code change and rerun the deployment pipeline. Option C. Log into the servers with the bad code change and swap in the previous code. Option D. Change the instance group template to the previous one and delete all instances. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option B. Revert the source code change and rerun the deployment pipeline. Question 37. Your organization wants to control policies for different departments independently, but centrally. Which approach should you take? Option A. Multiple organizations with multiple folders. Option B. Multiple organizations, one for each department. Option C. A single organization with folders for each department. Option D. A single organization with multiple projects, each with a central owner. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option C. A single organization with folders for each department. Question 38. You deploy your custom Java application to Google App Engine. It fails to deploy and gives you the following stack trace. What should you do? Option A. Upload missing jar files and redeploy your application. Option B. Digitally sign all of your jar files and redeploy your application. Option C. Recompile the C-locked servlet class using an MD5 hash instead of SHA-1. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option B. Digitally sign all of your jar files and redeploy your application. Question 39. You are designing a mobile chat application. You want to ensure people cannot spoof chat messages by providing a message was sent by a specific user. What should you do? Option A. Tag messages client-side with the originating user identifier and the destination user. Option B. Encrypt the message client-side using block-based encryption with a shared key. Option C. Use public key infrastructure (PKI) to encrypt the message client-side using the originating user's private key. Option D. Use a trusted certificate authority to enable SSL connectivity between the client application and pay server. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option C. Use public key infrastructure (PKI) to encrypt the message client-side using the originating user's private key. Question 40. As part of implementing their disaster recovery plan, your company is trying to replicate their production MySQL database from their private data center to their GCP project using a Google Cloud VPN connection. They are experiencing latency issues and a small amount of packet loss that is disrupting the replication. What should they do? Option A. Configure their replication to use UDP. Option B. Configure a Google Cloud dedicated interconnect. Option C. Restore their database daily using Google Cloud SQL. Option D. Add additional VPN connections and load balance them. Option A. Send the replicated transaction to Google Cloud Pub, Sub. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option B. Configure a Google Cloud dedicated interconnect.